There are stories the world proudly celebrates, stories that end in applause, headlines, and happy conclusions. And then there are stories the world quietly refuses to believe, not because they are impossible, but because believing them would force us to accept something unsettling. That power can feel helpless, that wealth cannot prevent fear, and that real love does not always grow where it is permitted. This is one of those stories, a story about a Saudi royal, a man born into privilege so complete that his future was decided before he ever learned his own voice. And a Filipino nurse, a woman shaped by sacrifice long before the world ever knew her name. Their worlds were never meant to touch. And if what happened between them had been revealed too soon, it could have destroyed more than careers. It could have cost lives. This is not a fairy tale. There is no rescue, no throne abandoned, no ending the world would approve of. Before we go any further, take a moment to like this video. It helps this story reach more people who may need to hear it today. Type 123 in the comments and tell us where you're watching from. Your support keeps stories like this alive. This is a story about what happens when power meets dignity, and why the bravest love stories are sometimes the ones that end in silence. Her name was Ana Reyes. She was 34 years old when she boarded a flight out of Manila, not with excitement, not with dreams of adventure, but with one suitcase and a promise she wasn't sure she could keep. A promise made in a quiet house, spoken more to herself than to anyone else. Back home in Leyte, her life was simple, but heavy in the way only responsibility can be. A mother whose knees no longer allowed her to work, who moved more slowly each year and hid her pain behind gentle smiles. A younger brother still in school, his future balanced on exam results and the money Ana wired home every month, and a small house that trembled whenever the rain came too hard, its thin roof reminding her that safety was never guaranteed. Ana had been a nurse in the Philippines for nearly a decade. She worked in overcrowded public hospitals where hallways doubled as wards and exhaustion was treated like weakness. 12-hour shifts that quietly became 16, night duties that blurred into mornings, days measured not by rest, but by how long her body could keep going. Her pay barely covered transportation and food. There were months when she chose between sending money home and replacing worn-out shoes, yet she stayed. Not because she loved the struggle, but because patience still reached for her hand, and family still whispered thank you, as if it were enough. She didn't leave because she wanted more. She left because she needed to hold everything together, because staying meant watching the people she loved grow older without help. The night before her flight, she packed, slowly, folding clothes, unfolding them again, taking out things she couldn't carry because they reminded her too much of home. When she hugged her mother goodbye, she smiled. A practiced smile, a brave one. And when she turned away, out of sight, out of reach, she cried quietly so no one would stop her and ask her to stay. Because if anyone had asked, she wasn't sure she would have had the strength to leave at all. Saudi Arabia was not unkind to Ana, but it was not forgiving either. It was a country built on order, on hierarchy, on rules that did not announce themselves but punished those who ignored them. From the moment she arrived, Ana understood that survival depended on awareness, not just of schedules and procedures, but of what not to notice. Do not ask questions. Do not draw attention. Do not forget your place. These were not written in manuals. They were learned in lowered voices, in the way senior nurses avoided certain hallways, in the way conversations stopped when security entered the room. Ana worked in a private medical complex in Riyadh, a hospital unlike any she had known. It did not feel public. It felt guarded, the kind of place where doors closed softly and stayed closed. It served diplomats, elites, and people whose names never appeared on paperwork. Patients were identified by numbers, sometimes by initials, sometimes by nothing at all. Charts were handled with unusual care. Rooms were monitored more closely than they were cleaned. and questions, when asked, were answered with silence. Security guards replaced waiting relatives. They stood where mothers and spouses should have been, their presence a reminder that some patients were protected by more than medicine. Entire wings could shut down without warning. Lights dimmed, elevators rerouted, staff reassigned with a single instruction: do not discuss this. Anna noticed things others learned to ignore: how certain patients arrived only at night, how doctors lowered their voices even when they were alone, how mistakes were not corrected. They simply disappeared. She understood something early on. In this place, attention was dangerous. So Anna became careful. She moved efficiently, spoke only when necessary, and learned to disappear into her work. She was calm in emergencies, precise with her hands, unemotional in front of authority, invisible, and invisibility in places like this was not a lack of identity. It was protection, because in hospitals where power walked the halls, being seen at the wrong moment by the wrong person could change your life forever. Anna did not know it yet, but one night soon, she would be seen. As the doctors worked, the man's breathing suddenly changed. It caught, stalled, then broke apart. His chest rose sharply, then refused to fall. A sound escaped him. Not loud, not dramatic, but raw. Fear, the kind that doesn't announce itself because it has never needed to. Anna stepped forward instinctively. She had been trained to respond to alarms, to numbers flashing red, to shouted instructions. But this wasn't that. This was a man realizing, in the most private part of himself, that his body was no longer listening to him. His eyes opened, wide, searching, unprotected. They moved quickly around the room, the ceiling, the lights, the faces that refused to meet his gaze, until they found hers. And in that instant, everything else fell away. No guards, no hierarchy, no titles carried in silence. Just two people locked in a moment neither had prepared for. Anna didn't look away. She didn't lower her eyes, she didn't flinch. She leaned closer, not in defiance, but in certainty. "You're safe," she said softly in English. "You're in a hospital. I need you to breathe with me." Her voice did not rise. It did not hurry. It stayed. The man's eyes stayed on hers. Not because she was commanding him, but because she was the only thing in the room that did not feel dangerous. He tried to speak. Nothing came out. Anna placed her hand lightly on his arm. Not possessive, not hesitant, grounding. "Slow," she whispered. "Just slow." His breathing began to follow her rhythm. Uneven at first, then steadier. The monitors responded. The room exhaled. But something else had happened. Something no machine could record. For the first time in his life, a man surrounded by power had been reduced to fear. And the person who reached him was not someone who feared him in return. Anna saw it then. Beneath the privilege, beneath the protection. Vulnerability. And the man, a prince without a crown in that moment, saw something he had never been offered before. Not obedience, not admiration, but presence. That single exchange lasted only seconds, but it rewrote everything that followed, because from that moment on, this was no longer just a medical emergency. It was the beginning of a connection that neither of them could afford, and neither of them would forget. During treatment, the man regained consciousness, and when he did, something broke, not medically, not visibly, but humanly. His eyes opened too fast, as if he had surfaced from somewhere dark without permission. They darted around the room, the ceiling, the lights, the figures standing just far enough away to feel unreachable. His chest tightened, his breath caught, then fractured, short, uneven, uncontrolled. This was not pain. This was fear, the kind that comes when a man realizes his body is no longer obeying him. Anna moved before anyone told her to, not because it was her turn, not because it was written in protocol, because she recognized the moment. She stepped closer and placed a hand on his arm, not firm, not submissive, steady. A quiet anchor in a room full of authority. "You're safe," she said softly in English. "You're in a hospital. Focus on my voice." Her voice did not rush. It did not command. It stayed. The man turned his head toward her. And then he looked at her. Not a glance, not a reflex. He looked, as if searching for something solid in a room that suddenly felt unsteady. For a brief moment, everything else, and disappeared. No guard standing watch, no hierarchy shaping the air, no title carried silently by the room. Just a man, young, powerful, protected, coming face to face with the terrifying truth that control is an illusion. Anna held his gaze. She did not look away. She did not soften her eyes out of fear or lower them out of respect. She simply stayed present. His breathing began to follow hers, uneven at first, then slower, then steadier. The monitors responded. The tension in the room loosened. But something far more important had already happened. Anna didn't know it then. Standing there in scrubs, doing what she had done 1,000 times before. But that moment had shifted something neither of them could undo. Because from that instant on, this was no longer just a patient and a nurse. It was two lives briefly stripped of their distance, meeting in a place where power meant nothing and presence meant everything. And nothing that came after would ever be untouched by it. The diagnosis came quietly. No dramatic announcement, no sense of relief. Just a doctor lowering his voice and choosing his words carefully. A congenital heart condition, long undetected, now aggravated by prolonged stress. The kind that does not care about money, or protection, or status, the kind that reminds even the most powerful that the body keeps its own rules. Treatment began immediately. Monitoring, medication, restricted movement, and then, without explanation, Anna was assigned to his recovery. Officially it was rotational, a normal staffing decision, nothing unusual. Unofficially, the request came from above, not written, not discussed. It simply arrived. The man, referred to only as the patient, had asked for her, not by name, by description. "She speaks calmly. She doesn't treat me differently." That detail unsettled Anna more than she expected. Patients made requests all the time, but not like this. Not without knowing names, not without questions, not without reason. This was not how things worked. Assignments followed schedules, schedules followed protocol, and protocol did not bend for preference. Yet every shift, when Anna checked the board, his room was still hers. She returned each time with careful steps and a guarded mind. Their conversations remained small, carefully shaped, professional. He asked about the Philippines, about islands, about storms, about what it felt like to grow up somewhere people left behind. She asked about his recovery, about pain levels, about sleep. He never spoke of who he was. Not once. And Anna never asked, because both of them understood something unspoken. Names carried weight, titles carried consequences. And whatever this was, whatever had begun in that moment of fear, it could only exist inside the boundaries of what was not said. For now, over days, something strange happened. Anna stopped feeling afraid, not because she forgot the rules, but because he never tried to bend them. He listened. When she corrected him, he accepted it. When she insisted on rest, he obeyed. One night, he asked her, "Do people see you where you come from?" She hesitated, then answered honestly, "Only when they need help." He nodded. That answer stayed with him longer than any medicine. Others noticed. Her schedule changed. Security lingered longer when she was present. Supervisors asked gentle questions with sharp edges. A senior nurse pulled her aside. "Be careful," she whispered. "Attention is dangerous here." Anna understood. And yet, she didn't step away. Because this wasn't attraction. It was recognition. On the day of his discharge, he asked to speak with her privately. He stood by the window. "I won't see you again," he said. "That's best." Anna replied. He handed her a small box. She didn't open it. "I can't accept this." He smiled softly. "I knew you wouldn't." That was when Anna realized. This wasn't kindness. This was interest, and interest from someone like him was a threat. They exchanged messages, carefully. No promises, no plans, just words that made silence heavier. Until questions began. Her contract was reviewed. Her name appeared on lists it never should have. He offered protection. She refused. "If you save me with power," she said, "I lose everything I am." That was the moment he understood. Love, for him, meant letting go. Anna returned to the Philippines a year later. No scandal, no reward, just dignity. The man she left behind returned to his world of responsibility. But he was not the same. Power no longer comforted him the way it once had. Because once you are truly seen by someone who expects nothing, you are changed forever. This was not a story about a prince saving a nurse. It was a story about two people who met where power didn't matter and chose not to destroy each other. Sometimes the bravest love stories are the ones that end quietly. So both people can live,